Hi, you guys, and welcome to another episode of The Creative Heart. My name is Gideon. I'm also known as Gideon's Light, and I'm your creatively fit coach. Today, we are going to be playing with underpaintings. Now, what is an underpainting? An underpainting is everything that you create on your canvas before you actually really start to build the shape or paint the thing that you want to paint. In this case, the Buddha, right? So if we look at this Buddha painting, there's beautiful lines and textures. You can see there's flowers and interesting elements that form the underneath layers of this Buddha. And that is what makes this painting so beautiful and interesting. So I really wanted to show you guys how I do that. So in today's episode, I'm going to be showing you how I'm using a particular color scheme and some collage elements and a variety of mediums to create what I call an underpainting. And then in the future, we will see how I superimpose the face of the Buddha on top of this and how this can help you to create your own beautiful Buddha painting. So welcome to Buddhafull October, and I'm really hoping to inspire you to paint your own Buddha. And if you want to dive deep with me in this, then join my Patreon page, because over there I'm going to be showing you exactly how to paint this one, another painting, and a lot more. So really, this here on YouTube is just to get you appetized and excited and interested to maybe try painting your own Buddha painting. So let me show you how. Hello everybody, this is so exciting as we continue with our Buddhafull October journey, and today my entire class will be all about creating interesting underpaintings. Now, before we continue, I do want to just share some very good news with you guys. It's been a number of years coming. I know one of my patrons early on has blessed me with a donation to get a microphone. Interesting story just to share with you guys. I got the microphone, and when it arrived, that sent me something completely different to what I ordered. So I had to return the order, and then the money was kept there as a credit. But I was waiting for a particular design because it would work in my lifestyle and with the technology that I currently have. So they didn't have this in stock, and then life happened. We moved house and all kinds of things happened. And then recently I was, reminded that I actually have credit, and I went into the store and they had what I was looking for back in stock, and now this arrived in time for my birthday. So hopefully now you will go find that my what shall we call it, volume and voice quality will improve dramatically, because now I have a microphone that is here under my voice box, and I don't have to project my voice upwards into the camera to try and have a better volume. Righty then. So please forgive me if I do cough a bit. I'm unable to control that, but I'm going to try and get through this so that you guys can benefit from what I have to offer, right? So one of the first things I want to talk about today, in order to have a successful Buddha painting, it really is helpful to have a color wheel. And like I discussed before, this season I really enjoy a Tetriac color scheme. That really just means that I'm using 4 different colors on the color wheel that is harmonious and complementary. And I really enjoy the vibrancy that this brings to my work in a controlled way, because I have a limited palette. Now, limited I say that in brackets because I work with 4 colors. So, but it's still not all the colors of the rainbow. So if you want to simplify this for yourself, I can really suggest maybe trying just a complementary color scheme, and that is just working with 2 colors that is opposing each other on the color wheel. And then you can introduce things like a titanium white paint and a black paint in order to mix different tints or tones or shades. So a shade would be a color that you add a little bit of black to. Now black is very potent, so you only need to add a drop in order to make the color a little bit darker. So if you look at this color wheel, these colors on the inside of the color wheel have been mixed with black, so you can see them much deeper, and sometimes it gives you a very interesting color when you add black to it. And then your tones would be colors that you've maybe mixed the gray in, and then your tints would be I could also be wrong here with the exact word, would be the lighter ones that you have mixed with a white. So don't quote me on the exact terminology, but to get the gist of it, hopefully. All right. So, alrighty then. So for this very first board that I've got here, I wanted to show you guys what I have. And you might recognize the color scheme here and some of the patterns and the play that I've got on this, because this is literally my inspiration board for what I'm currently painting on my big canvas. And this particular color scheme, if I remember correctly, I had it all figured out before. Let me just quickly find myself here. Yes, would be my green color scheme. So, this minty green color was my main focus. And then the complementary color to that would be my reds and my pinks. So you see the beautiful pink colors that I've got here. And then there's 2 spice colors. And the one is a violet. So we see some violets in here, and then also an orange, and we see the oranges in here. So just working with these 4 colors that we have here, and I've used a lot of white in them, so it's pastel toned. You can see them present on this board, and using a variety of tools that I have, from pens like this to markers, metallic markers, oil pastels, and so forth, to create interesting lines and patterns. And also I have recently acquired these awesome paint movers. They look like brushes, but it's silicone on the ends, and I absolutely love forgive me, how I smear the color on my page and creating an interesting pattern and texture, and I'm able to really work in thin films of color. Now, one of the things besides making a color choice for your Buddha painting that I want to sort of stress as a tip for success hopefully this will settle soon, is to really begin to play with transparent paint and inks. In your first layers of your painting, it's really helpful if you work with thin films of paint, or if you can choose paint that is already transparent in nature, because that will allow you to create beautiful and interesting combinations of color, but it won't cover everything up on the underneath. So you can still see some of the splatter patterns, you can see some of the lines that I drew. I'm just going to bring this a little bit closer to the camera so you can see what I'm talking about. So everything is translucent, and you can see a variety of textures and patterns that is coming together on this page. So if your colors are very opaque, it will cover up a lot of your play and patterns on the underneath. So in order to make them a little bit more transparent, you can add a bit of water or use something like a paint mover like this in order to really scrape it until you can see through that layer of paint. So that is a tip I can give you, especially early on in your painting, so that you don't cover up your underpainting completely, because it really can contribute a whole lot to the success of your painting. All right. Now the next thing we're going to be playing with during this Buddhafull October is, I really do love these ordinary printed serviettes, and I really love how that can contribute as a collage element to your painting, because it is really thin. So I do, forgive me, I do want to just add, when you take them out of the packet, you will find that they are mostly 3 layers, especially the quality ones. So I will suggest that you remove the 2 layers of plain tissue paper. You will see there's 2 layers of them, if my nails will allow me. Anyway, there's 2 layers there. So pull that completely off your tissue paper so that you only have the printed version at the end. So you really want that very thin single layer with the print on it to use in your collage. And I also suggest that you just use a finer brush like this with water, just to wet the tissue around the area that you want to tear out, and you will find then it becomes very easy to separate the piece that you want to use as collage in your painting from the tissue paper. But I will demonstrate that today. So another thing that I like to do is to, well, specifically for this season, you can go out there and find any tissue paper that speaks to you, that sparks joy for you, and maybe that's part of your color scheme. That will be really helpful. But one of the things I can say is, if you do get a black and white gradient kind of print like this, where you have sort of a depth of value, you've got very light areas, you've got very dark areas, you have a movement of depth and value in your print, that will really become an underpainting for you, because you can add color over top of it, and you will still see the shapes, and you can sort of personalize the tissue paper towards supporting your painting. Now, I've used this paper in this sort of demo board of mine, and I did enjoy sort of playing with my techniques here to see what I want between my metallic paint, my drips, and my patterns. It really created a beautiful foundation upon which I am now building my big Buddha painting, and I will show you guys a little bit later exactly how this experimentation is going. How do I take it to the canvas? So somebody asked, I think it was Susanna, that asked me earlier if it is a good idea to maybe start on paper before going to the canvas, and I totally agree. I think having a mock-up first is a great way to sort of just play, experiment, and get sort of ideas that you want to take to the canvas, and just first see how that will pan out, how it will work out. Maybe there's something you'll change when you go to the canvas, or you'll do a little bit differently, or you will use a color in a different way, because you've already gained some experience with your painting and playing on paper first. And you can complete it completely on the paper, and then take it to the canvas, and then you have 2 different varieties of the same theme. So it really is up to you. But I find working on watercolor paper, and this isn't even an expensive watercolor paper, this is just really student grade. It does crinkle a little bit, but it was a lot of fun. to play on this, and I will definitely create a Buddha out of this as well. Right, so I want to show you what else I have created here for you guys. And here we switch to another color scheme. I jumped over to, I think it was the yellow color scheme, and you will see that I particularly enjoyed this fern green that's down here. It's a yellow that's been mixed with black, and it's this particular color over here. And I also played with a little bit of a yellow-green version of that, and it's really complementary to the violets, and I really love the vibrancy of how this comes together. So this is the complements to each other. And then you'll see that there's two spice colors. There's a red and a blue, and you'll see the blues coming out into this violet. And I also used magenta here instead of just an ordinary, cadmium red. So magenta counts as a primary red, so that is how I brought in red. But you'll see me use very little of these two colors, because that's why I call them spice colors. It's something that you can use then later next to your main focus or something like that, just to bring in a bit of pop of color that makes this yellow a little bit more vibrant. So I'm going to be continuing to play on this board, and this was actually my Yes painting for the Yes extravaganza that I've evolved into a Buddha painting because it is on canvas board. I think it's another nice substrate to play on that will be beautiful. And I used this lovely tissue paper that I got as a sample, and I do like this little yellow bird as a focus in there, and that is that sort of fern yellow-green color that I'm referring to, that you see over here. And that is where my inspiration started. That is my main focus color. So again, also tearing out pieces of this, and I sort of get this paper down on my paperboard by using an acrylic medium. This is a great way to collage because it gives me a matte finish, and it really incorporates my papers and tissue papers really well. And then it seals it really beautifully on my canvas, and that way I know that if I use a multitude of mediums like my oil pastels in here as well, that it won't move and it won't peel and it won't do funny things. It will really become a single unit. I also used a jelly plate print. Just a few episodes back, I created this last paper in order to pull up all the paint from my plate, and this was such a beautiful violet combination. I just kept it, and these are the pieces that you see on here that I've used as collage. So this is also going to become a really pretty Buddha painting. Right, you guys, sorry my battery dried, and I'm still getting used to my new microphone and where I must put it on my chest, so forgive the sound quality. It's supposed to be better, not worse. So let's get into our third board, and I'm going to demonstrate to you guys today how I bring everything together. So this is my inspiration, a beautiful peony tissue paper, and we have all of our beautiful colors. I particularly want to play with the orange in this tissue paper, so I had to decide whether it was just orange or red orange, but I think I ended up choosing just the orange as the main color, and then its complement would be that of a beautiful green blue, and also I think, let me just organize my life here as I do a voiceover for you guys to go with this video. There's also a little bit of a violet in there that I thought was really beautiful. So we are going to be playing with these colors, and I got them out already as pastels. I do enjoy these pastels, and we're just going to play on this board with this color combination, and we will take it from there. This is an apricot from Lucas Kroll, and I also have a bright cadmium orange. I also brought out my magenta and my rose because I want to sort of manipulate the orange to have a bit of a coral tone. I also got some burnt sienna, which is also part of the orange family. If you mix a bit of black to your orange, you can make your own burnt sienna. And a lighter tone or tint, you can mix your white in there. Alrighty then, let's get into this. Right, I'm going to be using this plain watercolor paper and all of the materials that I selected for our color scheme to give you a bit of a demonstration. And I'm going to use this neon jelly roll pen just to activate my page. Now I think it's a good practice to set an intention or create a wish for every painting that you have. And I like to use the mantra for metta meditation in Buddhism as a wish for everyone. May you be happy, may you be healthy, may you be free from danger, may you live with grace and ease. And the mantra is Lokaha Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. And I'm just going to write it here in English and just set an intention for this page that everyone that sees this Buddha painting, that interacts with it, or maybe even that owns it in the future, that this blessing will emanate into their life. And it really is just my wish to end all suffering on the earth, and that will come by because we are more enlightened to the causes of our suffering. And what I like about these words as well is that it further implies that may I become aware of my own actions and thoughts and words and deeds that in any way contribute to other people's suffering, and may I heal that part of myself so that that suffering may end. So you can just add these words to your paper in any way that you want, that makes you feel comfortable and just sets the tone. And in a way, we already connect with the paper. And I think at this stage I also talked about the left brain and the right brain a little bit. We want to start our creative practice coming out of the left brain, because our left brain is really the part of us that makes the decisions. We use our left brain to collect our art materials, to select our color scheme, and to write these words of intention on the paper. All of those things, so it's really important that we use all the aspects of our mind. But if you're new to this practice, I know it is very hard to get out of the left brain and into the right brain. And what I mean with that is the left brain can be such a critical nanny. And if you're a beginner, that is something that can hinder you, because you might come from a place of perfectionism. And I honestly think that perfectionism is such a useless place, to begin a creative practice from, because perfectionism is born out of trauma and fear, and it really doesn't support us. Rather strive for excellence. So what we can do now after writing these words is turn the page around, and that way we confuse the left brain, we switch it off because it doesn't make sense to us anymore, and we can start to move into the right brain, which is connecting us to our higher self. It's our creative aspect that works through all of our senses, And the right brain likes to play with pattern, shape and texture, line and movement, and color. And I'm just going to start to meander all over this page using this bright neon pen. Not worried about anything in particular, just to connect with the paper and to activate this, what should we call it, surface. Just familiarize yourself with the feeling of the paper, the feeling of the pen on the paper. And I'm not making any particular shapes. I'm just really allowing myself to just meander across the page in an interesting way, coming off the page and on the page in no particular order. Forgive me. So I'm just going to continue to play on this page until I feel that I've run out of space, or I'm seeing enough of this one particular medium on my page. Now, if you're somebody that likes to do something specific, you can maybe doodle some flower shapes. It really is open for interpretation. Now let's switch over to another medium, and let's see. I think I grabbed an oil pastel. Yes, a nice bright orange, and I'm going to use it now in a horizontal fashion. I'm going to use the whole piece and just slowly move over the page and holding the page firm so it doesn't budge. Just see what is beautiful and where it wants to go. And I'm just going to meander over the page, creating a new kind of line. Nothing serious. I mean, come on, we're not going to end world hunger or solve one huge world problem. We are just playing. And I like to play with a variety of line and texture. So my first lines was very thin and, what shall we call it? Yeah, thin is the right word. And this is in contrast to that. It is thick, and the oil pastel lightly skips over the page and it leaves these interesting textures and marks. So it's always interesting to see what we can do next with our page. So if you feel you've seen enough of one thing, then maybe switch to another color. So now I'm going to move to a complementary color. And I'm going to use a small piece, very light blue. And now I'm going to do some linear lines, some straight linear lines, which again forms another form of contrast. My previous lines were organic, thick and meandering. This is thin and straight lines, and I'm just going to use them to fill up certain spaces, creating more dimension and visual interest on the page. I actually mentioned here that I do use a prompt box in my normal creative practice. And whenever I get stuck on a page and I don't know what to do next, I sort of consult my prompt box and see if there's something that sparks joy that will maybe give me a fresh direction to move into in order to, create visual stimulation. So you can already see how just using this linear line and repeating it in pockets of space all over my page, how that unifies everything and really begins to create an interesting movement of color, shape, texture and line. Right, I think it's time now to play with our paint, and I'm just going to use this as my palette. Now I already have this bright orange on there, so I'm going to go for this apricot orange, which is a pastel version of the orange, and I'm going to use my new paint shapers to dispense the paint on my page, and I really enjoy that. I think I added a bit of rose to this orange. Like I said before, I want a bit of a variety of a coral kind of tone, so adding a bit of pink to the orange will already create a little bit more of a interesting corally kind of color. And I'm not even going to mix them, I'm just going to use them next to each other. And now let's play with our paint shapers. Now these paint shapers, like I've mentioned before, are silicone brushes. They don't have bristles, and I really love the way that it feels when you smear the paint all over the page. And I'm lightly dragging this paint shaper over the paper, and with the watercolor being textured, and I'm not applying a lot of pressure to the paper, it sort of skips in certain places, and wherever the paint is thick you can really scrape it off and leave a thin film of paint. And I'm really looking at areas that is blank, where there's no color or movement of paint yet, and I'm just applying these structures, I will call them, of paint to zones, jumping and skipping all over my page. I think that's important, not to get stuck in one zone and trying to fill it in like a coloring book. So, it's okay if it skips and misses out some areas, because that will give an opportunity for something else to happen there. So make sure that you move about your page or your canvas with your color, applying dabs of it all over the show, so that later, you find that color everywhere on your canvas and not just in one spot. And that will also greatly contribute to a balanced and harmonious painting in the end. I love the buttery feeling of the paint on the paper, and I'm just enjoying the variety of textures and feelings, and I'm allowing that to guide my hand as to where I want to place some color next. And it's okay if your paint goes over areas where you've drawn before or scribbled before. It's just another layer and it adds another dimension. So it's pushing some of the first marks that you made towards the background, and your new layer is becoming more your foreground or focus, and the combination of it all is what adds or creates a beautiful and interesting underpainting that will contribute to our Buddha painting in the end. So I also distribute small amounts of paint so that I don't end up painting the entire page with one color. So I'm going to allow this to dry, and I'm going to switch over to a bit of magenta, because I do feel now I need something high contrast, something that's dramatic, that's going to stand out. And I'm also going to switch over to my larger paint mover. I'm sort of adding the magenta right on top of those two colors, because it is harmonious and I like the way that the paint mixes. So you'll see now when I use my big paint scraper how it sort of brightens up that magenta and sort of makes it more alive. I think I'm going to add a little bit of the apricot to this magenta because I want to lighten it up a little bit more. Now there's a lot of white in these pre-mixed pastels, so I don't need to add any more of my own white. So you can see that magenta brightening up now, and let's just go for it. Now let's try and make another kind of mark. So I'm gonna just make these square shapes and repeat them, and just allow them to take me on a journey. Again, there's no right or wrong. I really want you to adopt an attitude of play, of experimentation. Repeat some of your marks that you are making. Turn your paper around if you feel stuck and you don't know what to do next, and just see where it will take you. I mean, what can go wrong, right? I think one of the things that I encourage new painters to try is just to do something with a paint, play with it, experiment with it, allow it to dry, and then you can always add another layer or bring another color forward. There's no end to your journey. So if you've made a mark that you're not very happy with, remember you can always add something else. You can add a collage element, you can add another layer of paint. You're not stuck. So just repeat a pattern, and that will already make sense if you repeat something. Because if you just have one mark in one place and nowhere else on your canvas, then it might stand out or draw too much attention. So do work off your page as well. It makes your page even look bigger if some of your marks have no beginning and end and run off the paper a little bit. So in a way it sort of opens up your page, so it doesn't feel like everything is under arrest in the center of your page. I'm contemplating what to do with the remainder of the paint. I do like what is on the page now, so I think I'm going to let this dry. And I think at this stage I also talked about creating mud. And what I mean with that is when everything is still wet on your page and you switch to another color, especially a complementary color, you can create mud. And that just means you create a neutral. So if you don't want your colors to get muddy, then allow that part of your painting to dry first before you apply another layer of paint. And that way you keep the vibrancy of your colors and your structures without becoming muddy or too neutral. So I'm going to play with a bit of mint and this Arctic blue once this is dried, and then when we come back I will show you guys how to apply the collage. Right, everybody, we've had some technical issues. I forgot to charge my microphone, but we are back online. So all that I've done since I spoke to you guys was I played with a little bit of the mint and the Arctic blue and my paint movers, and I applied some of those colors on there as well, and now everything is dry, so we can get into the collage bit of our episode. So I just wanted to point out again that it is important to remove these two backing layers, otherwise your collage paper will be too thick and it might cause air bubbles underneath your paper, and that's never a pretty sight. Right, now the next thing I like to show you guys is just to use an ordinary round brush like this and some water. So have a look at your paper and see which part of the elements you would like to use, and then simply using some ordinary clean water, you can go around these elements with a bit of water just to soften the tissue paper. Let's use this section. And then you will see it becomes a lot easier to tear the section that you want to use. There we go. Put that aside. And now we have a collage element that we can introduce. Now, if you have a straight edge like this, you can also just put some water on the edge and just stir that edge. Or that could be a place where you can maybe bring everything together on the edge of your paper, if it will allow me to. And then you will basically place your element like that. Great. So I normally use a bit of a bowl that I have for my acrylic medium. This is just ordinary acrylic medium. This is I do like using a matte. I don't always enjoy the gloss. I think it's too shiny. But that choice is all yours. And then I use my trusty old brush for my collage. And I will load a little bit of acrylic medium on the place where I want to place my collage element. And do put enough of your medium down so that it's nice and wet, and you will find your tissue paper sticking much easier. And then it's a matter of placing your element and then going over it again. This brush of mine has seen a lot of acrylic medium, so it feels a little bit more like a stick to me rather than a brush. I must just let it soak a little bit in rubbing alcohol to break down all of the acrylic medium and give it a good wash in warm soapy water. That's one way to save a brush. And I work in an outward way to really just secure that collage element. And you can see some of the underneath colors popping through, and I really find that beautiful and interesting. So I'm going to continue to tear some of these collage elements and stick them down on this paper, and when we come back we will take it from there. Right, that is very beautiful. I love how these collage elements come together on my page. I think what I'm going to do now is just play a little bit with my oil pastel. I'm selecting what is this called? Almost like a burnt sienna. Yes, like a burnt sienna. And for me it sort of connects with some of these colors on there, but I wanted something strong that you will see, because I want to just bring some line work out again. And specifically what I like is semantic writing. Now, semantic writing is stuff that looks like it could be like a written text or language, forgive me, a language of sorts, but it's not really, it's all pretend. So you will get into your flow once you practice that. And I just like to just bring some of these elements together like that and just pretend that we are writing something. And it just adds a little bit of a movement there that I think is pretty and playful. And it starts to add yet another layer to the composition that I think is giving some depth to the design, and that will add some beauty to it. So there we have it. We have some beautiful underpaintings that I think will already give you a beautiful head start to create some lovely Buddha paintings. And it's been a lot of joy sharing this with you guys. And I really hope that it has sparked joy and it has really sparked some inspiration for you guys to see what is possible. If you're a beginner, you can see you really just express yourself with paint because it's non-objective. It has an abstract feeling to it. There's really very little that you can do wrong. If you follow some of the tips and guides that I gave you as far as color choices is concerned, limiting your color palette, you are definitely more likely to succeed in attaining something. And if it's your first Buddha painting, I want you to be very graceful with yourself and just say to yourself, this first one, let it be a learning school. Let it be a learning curve. Get to know your art supplies and your tools and bring it together on the canvas in a playful manner. Be experimental, be playful, have an open mind, rely more on your right brain. And when that critical nanny in your left brain activates and it starts to tell you that you're making a mess, you don't know what you're doing, this is not going to work out, just, gently step back and just remind this traumatized aspect of your personality that it's okay. We are not solving world hunger with this project. We are just delving into our own Buddhafull nature, and it is an opportunity to practice loving kindness first and foremost with yourself. And in practicing it with yourself, you will be able to extend it to others more easily, right? That is exciting. So take a piece of paper, grab your art supplies and bring something together on a page, and then take a photograph and share it with me on the Creative Heart. If you're part of my Patreon community, also share it with me over there. I'm so excited about my Patreon community. There are 2 tiers available now. The first tier is a public tier, so you don't have to apply for it. You are able to follow my, You are able to follow my page and see what I'm sharing with the public without having to make any financial commitment. And then you sort of get a gist of what we are into and what we are exploring. I've made available some of the first episodes of the first Buddha painting, so you can see my teaching style and how we get into the step by step. And then if you're really ready, you can commit to the second tier, which is only $5 a month. And then you have unlimited supply to all of the information and content that I share there. And it really is my idea to make it as affordable for everyone, but at the same time, it is supporting me in my life work. So thank you for those who have already joined me. And it's really fun to see what you guys are already up to in your practice. And some of you shared some of your Buddha paintings with me already that you're working on. And that is just so exciting. So I'm continuing to share with you guys during this October. We're taking it 1 week at a time, 1 step at a time. And by the end of October, you should have a beautiful Buddha painting to begin your journey with. So thank you for joining me. Stay creative, and I'll see you guys again next week for another Creative Heart episode. So thanks for watching. Hit that like button. Remember to subscribe, and I'll see you guys again next week. Bye bye for now.